合唱。ナモアミダ仏。
ナモアミダ仏。
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 ナマンダー、ナマンダー、ナマンダー、ナマンダー、ナマンダー。奇妙無量寿如来ナモ不可思議故法蔵菩薩院にじ在世自在を仏性刀剣書物浄土院国土人伝自然魔根流無常修正願諸発慶右大偶勢五行死唯死生十十世妙正門実法右法無量無変更無下無体公園の少女間に知恵子無断難事無証拠超日学校精進世一切群上無故障音願名号少女業死心信行願に上等役所大涅槃非死滅道願成就如来生意公修世唯説弥陀本願会五辱悪事群上会往生如来如実言納発一年期愛心不断門の特礼拝凡上逆法再永入如修死入開始味摂取心教上昇後意の水波無明暗頓内心臓死運無上不真実信心天非如に幸福運無運無死下妙無暗薬心謙虚大狂気即応超絶語悪臭一切全幕本無に
問心如来偶勢願仏言古代証下者善人名踏んだりけみだ仏本願念仏邪見狂乱なく修正信行十字人に難中死難昔インド祭天地論下中華自治域史こそ現代諸公聖書意妙如来本税要記釈迦如来両我戦一種五妙難天竺龍樹大自主統制質の財派うるけ先絶大乗無情報召喚議事小安楽賢治難行六六信行異行指導楽億年弥陀仏本願自念即時入筆上唯の上昇如来語お法大非偶勢よ天神菩薩増論説奇妙無下公如来下衆たら見真実公正王朝大誓願こういう本願力栄光移動群上昇一心記入苦毒大崩壊筆逆入大へ収集特使蓮華造世界即正信如法精進有本の輪現人図入生寺四寺要下恩師鈍乱両天使上古来消防殺来三蔵る四十上教凡上宣教気楽法天神菩薩論中下報道因果見誓願おげんねこゆたり少女しゆい信心惑前門無信心法 生じ生じ即涅槃。非死無量光明道。小衆上回復形。同社結晶道難所。唯名浄土活入。万全自力変言宗。円満徳語感染症。三不三神慶四言。増末法滅道品。一生増悪地偶税。死安如外生妙化。全能六妙武将位。公愛上三陽逆悪。公明明語見二年。介入本願第一回。行者小樹本語心。教義一年総合。用意大と逆三人。即小法小子上楽。原神公開一大教。返帰安女官二祭。先祖終身反戦人。法華二度小電流。極重悪に唯勝負。我薬剤非摂取中。煩悩証言水不見。大非無見上昇が。本資源空妙仏教。連民全幕本部に。新宗教書後編集。戦略本願具惑性。現来生じ臨伝下。決知義上位小子。即入弱上無意楽。一心人二の流。仏教大自主使徒。上際無変極上悪。同族自主愚道心。有意化心死。高僧聖
部
ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナ
ミダ成仏のこの方は今に自己を得たまえりお真の降臨際もなくせのもうみょうを照らすなりナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナ
知恵の光明はかりなし
無量の所相ことごとくご受けゆかむらぬものはなし真実妙に奇妙せよナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部ナモアミダ部下脱の降臨極もなし高速かむるものはみな な有無を離ると述べたも平等深くに奇妙せよ。ナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナ幸運無下女国一切の有下に触りなしこうたくかむらぬものぞなきなんじりよ奇妙せよ。ナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナ
小宇上公明並びなし
ぐしこうのゆえなれば一切のごけものぞこりぬひきょうえよ奇妙せよ。ナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナモアミダブナ
うこうせゆえゆ最大一
公園の部と名付けたり三途の国 くなり、第四軍を奇妙せよ。がんにしくのく平等聖祭道発母大心おうじょうわんなこ。ナモアミダ仏。
ナモアミダ仏。
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 ナモアミダ仏。ナモンダ、ナモンダ、ナモンダ、ナモンダ。Ryogemon、合唱、Ryoge出言、もろもろの造業雑種、自力の心を振り捨てて、一心に阿弥陀如来、我々が今度の一大事の御所、御助け総来と頼み申して候。頼む一年の時、往生一条、御助け次女と存じ、この上の称名は言放射と存じ、喜び申し候。この恩断り、弔問申し訳、候こと、ご解散承認、ご修正のご恩、次第僧侶の前受式の朝からざるご関係のご恩と、ありがたく存じ候。この上は定めおかせられる恩のきて、一語を限り守り申すべく候。The Creed. We rely upon Tathagata Amitabha with our whole heart for the enlightenment in the life to come, abstaining from all sundry practices and teaching, and giving up trust in our powerless self. We believe in the assurance of our rebirth through his compassion comes at the very moment we rely upon him. And we call the name Namo Amida Butsu in happiness and with deepest gratitude. We acknowledge gratefully the benign benevolence of our founder and succeeding masters who have led us to believe in this profound teaching, and we do now endeavor to follow throughout our lives the way laid down for us. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda.
All right, please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Okay, hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. Today we are observing our Fall O-Higan Service. The Higan services are held at the spring and autumn equinoxes, a day when technically the day and nighttime hours are exactly the same. And this is a time when traditionally many Buddhists, monks and nuns would get together and contemplate Higan, or the other shore of Amida Buddha's Pure Land. At this time of year, we usually tell the story of the river of fire and the river of water. Now, this story is about a traveler who is journeying into the vast and solitary wilderness. And as the traveler is moving along, there are beasts, bugs, and bandits behind the traveler. And up ahead, even though there is a clearing eventually, the clearing has a great river of fire on one side, a great river of water on the other, and a tiny, tiny little white path running right down the middle. However, looking at the path, the traveler can see the rivers of fire and the rivers of water billowing over the path. And so even though this seems like the safest route, the traveler is very hesitant, because if they turn around and go back, they will be confronted by all of the beasts and bugs and bandits that are constantly pursuing said traveler. And if they go forward, it's possible that the traveler will plunge on either side, either into the river of fire or into the river of water. However, standing there kind of trying to make a decision, the traveler hears a voice from the eastern bank behind, encouraging the traveler to keep going forward. And then from the way western side, at the end of the path that can't be seen, another voice is calling, encouraging the traveler to just take one step and you will be able to move forward. At this point, after some thought, the traveler decides that they will go ahead and step onto the path. And as they move, they give no backward glance or any thought of turning around. They reach the other shore and encounter their good friend. Now, this particular story is meant to be a story about all of us. We ourselves are the travelers. We are going through this vast and solitary wilderness. We are pursued by these beasts, bugs, and bandits. We have to pass through this great river of fire and this river of water. And all of these things represent, again, our own selves and the gas or greed, anger, and stupidity that are constantly surrounding us. However, the voice from the eastern shore is the voice of Shakyamuni Buddha, trying to bring the Dharma to us, to encourage us to set our minds on the other shore of Amida Buddha, Amida Buddha's Pure Land. And even though it seems very, very difficult to pass through all of these things, eventually, when we settle ourselves and our minds, we are able to take one step on the path. And that's not to say that maybe the beasts, bugs, and bandits are not going to still pursue us a little bit. The river and fire and water will still billow over the path. But if we have steadfast resolve and can move forward, eventually we will be able to come to the Buddha's great Pure Land and eventual enlightenment. Now, one of the things I'd like to focus on specifically is the idea of traveling in this wilderness. Now, wilderness can variously be described as sort of an unsettled, uncultivated region that's left up to its natural state or its natural condition. It can also be seen as a bewildering or threatening vast space. And often when people think of the wilderness, I guess it depends on where you grew up, really. For some, it's vast, empty desert with nothingness. For others, it could be the deep woods that are yet unexplored, but each one contains an element of the unknown that does make it a little more bewildering or threatening. This vast wilderness talked about in this story is the vast wilderness of our own minds. It's something that we need to traverse in order to find this great awakening, and it's something that we need to, with ourselves, become settled. Recently, something that's been on my mind quite a bit, and specifically because it did snow last week, is my garden and my yard. So when I first moved into the house I'm living in now, my yard was a vast wilderness. We had a lovely brick patio that had become completely overgrown with all kinds of weeds. There were little garden boxes set up, but these garden boxes also completely overgrown with weeds. And so I set about trying to pull the weeds to get rid of all of this wilderness, because to me it looked chaotic and messy, and I wanted something clean and nice that I could sit out and enjoy. The only problem with that is once I started pulling up the weeds, I didn't realize how many earwigs were living in the ground. Earwigs are disgusting. I don't like them at all. But I disrupted their home. And so for the first month that we lived in this house, we had earwigs everywhere because each weed I pulled contained what apparently was another colony. So they were all over the house all the time. They were all over outside. And so in a sense, not only had I gone into the wilderness and tried to control it, but in trying to control it, I had brought up a whole bunch of nasty bugs that were constantly pursuing me. Now, when we try to control our minds, we think of it as complete control, that we must be calm and serene all the time, that somehow there is a magical way for us to be completely clear in our minds so that it will be uncluttered and not messy at all. But like pulling weeds in my garden and on my patio, sometimes when you are striving a little too hard and getting a little overzealous with it, these little bugs come up and start pursuing you. Now, as time went on, I was able to start planting my garden. Over the winter, I was putting all of our compost directly into the ground. And so I was making sure that I was getting the soil prepared. And I have 3 garden boxes. One of them got the most compost. The next one I started switching over. And then the third one got nothing at all because it was time to plant when we were going there. So I worked all the soil. I did what I thought would make everything grow and found that in my first garden this year, I've got squash and various peppers, all kinds of tomatoes that went absolutely nuts. We have so many tomatoes, we don't even know what to do at this point, and we're having to get very creative with the squashes and peppers. But there was also an enormous squash plant, a squash to this day I can't identify. It's delicious, but it came up out of nowhere. I did not plant it, and now it's officially the biggest squash plant in the garden, having even grown over the fence a little bit. The second garden box that I did, I had worked all the soil, thought I had done everything correct, and everything I planted died. It didn't matter what it was. It would come up a little bit and then it would shrivel up and die like a week later. And so I tried to work it a little more, thinking that, maybe I'll read some gardening manuals, figure all of this out, and I'll get stuff to grow. And at the moment, I have 2 tiny cucumber plants, and we're now almost at the end of September, and they are just starting to produce. So no matter what I did with that particular garden, thinking I'd done everything correctly, I got nothing. And then the third garden, where no soil had been worked other than for me to turn it a little bit, I have all of the corn growing, I have various flowers and some jalapeno plants, all of which also going nuts. So I didn't control that environment quite as much, again, other than to dig up the soil a bit and plant a few things. And in looking at my garden and thinking about the idea of chaotic wilderness, wilderness is something that we think is a little bit scary because we realize we don't have control. However, my sort of lack of control has come to be very, very interesting, especially when looking at this garden. I think about the one that's flourishing on the one side, and I did work, of course. I made sure that everybody was watered all the time, that they had enough fertilizer. But once they started going, they really started going and just kind of all on their own. They were the perfect example of naturalness of being. However, even though I feel like I failed in the second box, that is also an example of the naturalness of being. It looks very sparse, except for the tiny little cucumber plants that they look really sad, but they're trying really hard and they're just doing what they do. And same with the third box, that maybe I didn't strive so hard, but the plants there are doing exactly what they do. The corns are weird. They got knee-high at the 4th of July and stopped there, but they're growing tiny little corns, so clearly what I planted was baby corn plants. But again, each one of them is doing simply what they do. So when we think of the idea of being a traveler and going into this vast wilderness, we can think of it in terms of, yes, the wilderness can be scary, but there's also that element where it is maybe an unsettled region, but it is in its natural state. It is doing exactly what it does, and some parts are going to flourish, and some parts are going to be a little sparse, and some parts are just kind of going to do what they're going to do. And so when we consider the wilderness as our own minds, these unsettled, kind of uncultivated, wild minds, we can try our best to control them, to try to be mindful of the thoughts we have, the actions we take, the words that we speak, but also knowing that it is vast and uncultivated for the most part. This wilderness that we traverse within our own minds cannot be fully controlled. There are things that are completely beyond our control that sometimes we are going to try to pull some weeds out and get nothing but horrifying little bugs that come. We have places that we will try to cultivate, but maybe nothing will grow, maybe small little plants will grow, and they will grow very, very slowly. And sometimes we will have places that we feel we have not cultivated at all that still contain life that's doing exactly what it does, which is existing. So at this time of year, when we consider Higan, when we consider the other shore, we can say with gratitude, Namo Amida Butsu, knowing that there's always a voice on the other side calling to us with that Namo Amida Butsu, trying to help us move through the vast wilderness, to lose some semblance of our fear of the beasts, bugs, and bandits, the river of fire, which is our anger, the river of water, which is our ignorance. And as long as we hear and respond to that voice and can resolve firmly to try to take one little step on that path, there's no time limit. You can take it as slowly or as quickly as you want. But eventually, in hearing the call of the Buddha, that is what gives us that firm resolve, that somewhat settled mind, and the fearlessness to help us accept that beasts, bugs, and bandits, they're going to be there. The rivers, they're going to be there. But if we have firm resolve, we can traverse them safely, and eventually we'll meet our good friend on the western shore. So thank you all for coming today and joining us for this O-Higan service. We'll go ahead and close with Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo.
Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu。十方未尽世界の念仏の主情をみそなわし、摂取して捨てざれば、阿弥陀と名付け立てまつると、Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu。お彼岸サービスにご参加の皆様、ようこそのお参りでございます。本日は3人のミニスターがおりますので、私が日本語での法話を少しお話しさせていただきたいと思います。少しといっても10秒、20秒というわけにもいかないので、もう少し長めにお話をさせていただきますが、皆様は最も短い法話というのをご存知でしょうか？これはですね、先日調べ物をしていたときに見つけた話なんですけども、なんと最も短い法話というのがたったの4文字 でした。その4文字というのは何なのかというと、蹴る、狩る、以上です。これで終わりです。こういう法話があったんですね。蹴る、狩る。この4文字の法話をされたのが、なんと有名なお坊さんだったそうですが、あるお寺で法要がありました。そこで先生方3人おりました。3人のお坊さんがそれぞれの法話をする中で、3番目の先生がこの蹴る、狩ると言って法話を終わられたそうなんです。一体どういう経緯でこういう短い法話になったのかということなんですけども、まず3人の先生の講演がありまして、1人目の先生のお話がですね、予定より少し長くなってしまったんですね。熱が入ってしまった。これよくあることです。しかし、2番目の先生もまた時間通りに終わらずに長くなってしまったんですね。すると、もう3番目の先生がお話しする時間がもうほとんどない。どんどん短くなっていきますから、ほとんど喋る時間がない。こうなってしまったんですね。そしてようやく出番が来た時に、そこの主催者の方がですね、大変申し訳なさそうに、先生終わりの時間が迫っているので、ご講義を一言でお願いしますと、こう言われたそうです。一言で浄土真宗のご講義を伝えると言ってもですね、いろんな言葉がありますから、阿弥陀様ですとか、信心、またお浄土、いろんな言葉がありますから、なかなか難しいですね。普通に伝えるだけでも難しいのを一言でと言われたんですから、これはさらに難しいことです。もし私がこの先生の立場だったらと考えると、やはり一言では難しいですね。多少少し長くなってしまうと思います。しかし、その先生は違ったんですね。その先生は合唱をして、メンバーさんの方を見て、蹴る、狩ると話して、5文章を拝読して法話を終えられたそうです。一瞬の出来事ですから、メンバーさんもざわざわされたそうです。その後ですね、主催者の人がその先生に聞きに行ったそうです。先生、蹴る狩るとは一体何のことですか？すると先生はこう答えました。蹴るというのは助ける。つまり阿弥陀様の呼び声、働きですね。それは私の行為や成果に関わらず、必ず救ってくださる。これを助ける。阿弥陀様というのは助ける仏様なんです。なるほど。では、狩るというのは何なんですかということですが、この狩るというのは助かるということなんですね。阿弥陀様の救いに私たちの疑いの心、もしくは計らいを挟む余地はないので、ただただ助かるのみ、私は助かるのみだということで、助かるの狩るがここに来るわけです。これどういうことかと言いますと、例えばですね、お寺や神社に行きますと、手を合わせている人を見かけますね。これは何をしているんでしょうか？例えば、願い事を叶えてくれる神様がいるという神社であれば、健康で過ごせますようにと、受験に受かりますように、こういうふうにお願いする人がいると思います。確かにそういう場所もありますね。しかし、浄土真宗のお寺でですね、手を合わせる人というのは、これは願い事をしているわけではないんですね。南無阿弥陀仏という言葉を言っていますが、この南無阿弥陀仏というのは、南無お任せします。阿弥陀仏にお任せしますよという意味になります。この阿弥陀仏というのは、サンスクリット語のアミターバ、アミターユスから来ています。時間と空間を超えた存在であるという意味なんですが、まさに遠い昔のインドから今日2020年のアメリカ、日本まで届いている。これまさに時間と距離を超えているということになりますね。そこにはですね、阿弥陀仏のすべての命を救いたいという願いが込められています。浄土真宗のお寺では私たち人間は願い事はしませんが、阿弥陀仏が代わりに願ってくださっているんですね。すべての生きとし生ける命がお浄土に生まれますように、いや、生まれさせるという誓いなんです。この阿弥陀仏の必ず助けるという誓いによって、 私が助かる。こういう教えなんですね。阿弥陀仏は私を助けるとおっしゃる。そして私はただ助かる。こういうシンプルな内容を説明するのに、ケル、カルと言われたんですね。私はこれ以上短い法話は聞いたことがありません。たった4文字ですからね。このケル、カルに込められた阿弥陀様の心と、そして私に条件を問わない救いなんだというふうに確かに受け取ることができる短いけども深いお話でした。すべての衆生を救い取って決して見捨てない、そういう阿弥陀様のお話をさせていただきました。それでは寛容5文章にて。万代無知の在家始終の男女たらん友柄は、心を一つにして阿弥陀仏と深く頼み参らせて、さらに世の方へ心を振らず一心一意にぶったすけたまえともさん衆生ば、たとえ在後は人獣なりとも必ず弥陀如来は救いましますべし。これすなわち第18の念仏往生の誓願の心なり。かくのごとく献上しての上には寝ても覚めても命のあらん限りは、称名念仏すべきものなり。あなかしこ、あなかしこ。ナモ阿弥陀仏、ナモ阿弥陀仏、ナモ阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏。